Let's go back to August 2013. Curtain closes after the Sunday matinee, and Restless Creature, as far as the pillow knows it, is over. I just want to, could you talk a little bit about knowing, that was the work that, Wendy, that you collaborated, 4 different choreographers made dances for themselves and you. How did you know that you wanted the conversation to continue with Brian?
Brian was the first partner that I started working with. We started to work, we met in 2011, Fire Island Dance Festival, and then a year later we started working in the studio. Damien Wetzel commissioned us for Vail International Festival, and I decided, I had met him and I knew I liked him and I knew I loved his work, and I was like, yes, this is good. And once we got in the studio, it was a natural connection and fit, and I loved every moment of it. All the way till right now, I've loved every moment of it. So it's, one of those things. You meet someone and there's a spark, a creative spark, and you want to savor that.
So Brian, when the possibility arose of making an evening-length work after making the duet, how did you go about thinking about, okay, well, I have a complete work, and how do you unpack it to expand the thinking about it?
So the extended show for me was first, oh my gosh, we have so much to talk about. We have so much going on. It seemed easy and obvious to make a full show. So it didn't start like, let's expand on that. It started about, what else haven't we said yet? And getting to know Wendy's goofball as well as, there were so many sides. I hope that's okay I said that. Yeah, but down to earth and wonderful and charming and poetic and beautiful and touching and moving, and it felt like all those things could be explored in a variety of solos and duets. So we kind of embarked, and as we've been going, it's funny because the first piece we made is the last piece you saw tonight, and it feels as though everything else we've made leads to that moment, and so I'm experiencing this strange like backwards time thing with the piece. Like the piece has moved in reverse time from when we've met and worked.
Wendy, I want to ask about your solo. I was thinking a lot about how different from the world that you grew up in. So not only not the codified movement vocabulary of ballet, but also a really different kind of bodily sensibility. Not the preparation, not the range of things, but really theme and variation on a much smaller scale. Could you talk about the challenge of that when it's not the kind of bravura thing that maybe people think of you doing, but then it's a bravura thing in a whole other kind of way?
Like First Fall, when we premiered it in 2012, it was one of the most nerve-wracking things I have ever done in my entire life, was to do that first movement for the first time with Brian and Vail. I was petrified. And I can say the same thing about that solo. We started working on it, we started diving into ideas around April or May, and then culminated into an idea in June, and now it's something else. But I remember having a breakdown with Brian, and I was like, no more, I can't take any more combinations. I just don't get it. It's enough, it's too much. I was like, can't you just make something easy? And Brian said, I just see so much lazy choreography that I can't. No, I'm sorry. And I was like, I love this guy, and I love that he pushed me, and I love what he gave to me in that solo. I absolutely cherish it, actually.
So Colin, at what point did Brooklyn Rider enter the conversation? It's not your first time working with dancers on stages here at the Pillow, so maybe you could just say how that conversation started.
We were thrilled when Brian approached us about an expanded version of Brooklyn Rider and the two of you, and it's great that both, I think, we brought music to you that you didn't know, and vice versa. So the John Luther Adams piece is something we had not played and loved learning. He has actually written a piece for us, which is in a similar vein of, you never play a real note the whole time. It's all harmonics. And so it has a literally untouched quality and pure nature and mathematics going on, which is very beautiful. And similarly, the first piece, the solo that you're talking about, you guys brought to us.
Colin, one of the things that I think is fascinating is we think about composers doing some arranging, but you actually do some physical arranging. You shift places in where you stand on stage. Could you talk about what's happening with moving the musicians?
In Brooklyn Rider, Johnny and I trade the first violin role, and we sit antiphonally, which is something that not too many quartets do now, but was something that in the 19th century, the Joachim Quartet, very famous musician at that point, used to do. So we find there's history there, but we just like it because there's a lot of great dialogue across, instead of the second violin role being sort of buried within the first violin. But we like exchanging those perspectives, basically.
So Brian, it's fabulous to have the live music, but why not? Why not in the pit? Why on stage?
Having them on stage, I mean, it feels like for me, this particular project is not accompaniment to the dance, it's integral. So they're the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth partners of the performance. So we're exchanging glances, and not a lot of theatrics or a lot of exchange, but just a little bit. But we're exchanging infinite amounts on the smaller level, the slightly unseen, sometimes seen, but the cueing and the live element, to have them right on the stage, it brings me into the studio and into the kind of day-to-day practice of dance where the musicians and the dancers are right on the same shared floor. So there's always, I think the proximity just continues to remind me that I'm dancing with them. So I can hear each night the tempo's a little slower or a little fast. Not too fast, please, but the tiny changes of tempo, or they're playing with the music too each night, and playing with pause and attack, and we're getting to know each other better. So it's quite fun, because now Wendy and I are starting to hold back a little and really wait to hear them and go. So it feels just so appropriate to have them visible and to see the work.
I was saying to these guys backstage that they only had to keep to one seat before when we came out here, unlike the chair piece. And I actually wanted to ask about that, because it feels like it must have started with a game, like that you set up some kind of tasks for yourself of switching places and some of that stuff. Could you talk a little bit about that, just digging into that process for the chair duet?
Yeah, I mean, the chair piece really came out of studying Colin's music for a long time, and I was improvising and trying things out and trying to understand my entry point into his score. So he had already written the score and had it ready, so I was really responding to what he had made.
Unfortunately, what he had to work off of was this awful garage band layering of myself playing all the parts, but every time you hit the space bar, you get a clicking sound. So I don't know if you miss all those clicking sounds that are.
I do a little. It's a demo, so I kind of like the demo. And sometimes for the bass, he'll sing, so it'll be like the string will be going, and then I'll go.
It's terrible, terrible.
Terrible. That might have added to the fun.
To say something about the two other collaborators, one being you with the visual design, and also Joe Levasseur, the lighting designer. And if you could just talk more about how this piece came to be, and then how you worked with Joe.
He works with me from the beginning, before I've even started in the studio with Wendy, and we talk about kind of concept and idea. So our conversation also lead me to make decisions about the choreography, and then when I speak with Colin, it feeds into the conversations about music. So he's just really integrated, and I love that. This was just, I don't know, I like a bit of elegance, I suppose. We did a residency without any set, and we had deconstructed the space with the sides of the theater open and the back wall. And I like to deconstruct the frame a little bit and Karen Young's, I think, great costumes, so surprisingly simple, just kind of bring us into kind of a casual world and a human world rather than kind of an esoteric dance world. We try to just make a connection with the aesthetics. So the open space was a little too extreme for me, so we added this detail to bring in a little sense of interior or space or familiar, almost home, but just a touch of it amongst the kind of deconstructed theater. So we're just trying to give a little memory of place and not be, again, too literal, but just kind of hint you in the direction of the associations you might make.
So Wendy, for you, it's a very different way of working to maybe come in and just be playing with ideas and maybe not talking so much.
Yeah, well, Brian, this was one of the first experiences I had improvising with a choreographer. Brian had me improvising with him at times, and it, a couple years ago, I would have been so shy and uncomfortable, but he, put on his Beyonce and we were going at it. And
She always works.
it was fun. And so I just have to say one thing about working with Brian. Working with him and going through these years of exploring, he's opened me up so much as a person and an artist, and it's just been really pivotal to me to work with him.